Hello, am I live? I believe I am. I'm going to jump online and check. Let's make sure. Okay. I see myself here. I'm going to wait for people to sign in before I get started. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to sign in. I'm so excited. I am feeling the magic vibes today. I've got my Halloween earrings on. It's gorgeous outside today. Here in Tallahassee, normally it's still boiling like 90 degrees in September, and today it was 66 this morning. It's like in the 70s now. It's delicious outside. So lovely. Yay, we've got Kim Murphy tuning in. Tuning in. Yeah, long time no see, Kim. It has been a while. I want to make sure everything is set up. Let me pin this link here. Yes, pin it to the top. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Yay. All right. So this is going to be such a good class. So hello, everyone. I'm so excited for the last day of the Quantum Shift workshop. Caroline is here. Caroline Birch is back. I want to see, like I've been saying, I always say this in my videos, but I like to see how many people I can get from across the world. So tell me where you're tuning in from. It's my dream to get 6 of the 7 continents one day, just because I think that would be so cool. So tell me who you are, where you're from, and why I should love you. I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, and it's the armpit of the state. So the fact that it was 66 this morning, I'm going to be riding that high for some time. Hopefully it stays with this lovely weather for a bit and maybe transitions back into cool. But, I remember some Halloweens where I was like sweating bullets. So fingers crossed that it's going to be a nice, lovely, crisp fall. I'm hoping. All right. So please say hello. Oh, Kim is in Maryland. Thanks for letting me know. Tell me where you're from. I want to know. So while we're waiting for people to sign on, I want to know what you're excited about today, because I don't think I've ever done one of these workshops that's literally just purely about spell work and money magic. Kim says, have I missed previous days of this class? Yes, but you don't need to go watch them to learn today. So don't worry, you can check those out at the end. Today, we're going to be talking about money spells. Oh, Caroline's in New Mexico. Very cool. So we're talking about money spells today, money magic, prosperity magic, however you want to think about it. And in the meantime, like if you were here yesterday, I know Caroline was, and you had any big aha moments or any gold nuggets that you had, I want to know what they are, because I am going to provide a small recap from the past couple days. So those who haven't seen it, haven't gotten a chance to see them yet, can kind of have their bearings with us. So, and what goals did you come to this workshop with today? Because I want to make sure that this content is tailored just for you and whatever your goals are in your business this week. So that being said, let me recap. So if you were here the past 2 days, you know that we've talked about the science of manifestation. Ooh. Oh, Kim said excited about the fact that I went on a 12-mile bike ride. I'm glad to hear that. So we talked about the science of manifestation. We've talked a bit about quantum physics. We've talked about like neuroscience. We've talked about all of these things, psychology. And what that was in pursuit of was aligning with $10,000 in a week, right? And so now the thing that now we're going to be talking about spell work. And what's funny is that so many people think of like assume that spell work is like really woo-woo, really out there. And it's actually super grounded in philosophy and a lot of these principles we've been talking about. So we're going to be getting into that today as well. This isn't just going to be like, take these steps, do these things. We're really going to learn, learn like what creates a spell, like the power behind a spell and how to utilize that. So yesterday, like day one, we talked about like, how to get your entire brain on board, how manifestation works. Like we're all made up of atoms that vibrate, and our body creates electricity, and that like, expands out past our physical form and impacts the world around us, just like we're impacted by things as well. And that reality only exists because of our subjective experience of reality. Remember, we talked about if a tree falls in the woods and no creature or device is around to hear it, does it actually make a noise? And I had mentioned how years ago when I first heard that riddle, I was like, of course it does, because it creates a sound wave, and the sound wave is present no matter what. However, understanding now that what causes reality to exist is my subjective perception of it, or anybody's, the fact that it can only be there. It can only really exist because I see I see color, I see like that stuff, or I experience it with touch, with a sense of smell. It is the experience of those senses that causes those things to exist. So now I would say no. Not only does that sound not only does it not make a sound, the tree falling doesn't even exist because nobody would be there to experience it. We also talked about, Kim says her goal is to get one paying client before the end of the month. Absolutely possible. That's like very easy. You can change your whole life in a day. We also talked about the three aspects of our psyche: the shadow, the ego, and the highest self, and how we get them all on board to manifest with us. So with the shadow, the thing that tells you both that, it tells you that you're not as good as you think you are, and it also tells you that you're better than other people. So the way we get the shadow on board is literally looking at the fears that it's associating. I can't do that because, people will think I'm stupid, right? Like anything like that, that's like a shadow fear. And we get the shadow on board by basically like looking at what is the fear that's underneath that. And that brings us to the ego, which is very concerned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So food, shelter, water at the bottom, community, self acceptance, whatever. And then at the top, like self-actualization. And so generally the way we get our ego on board is having a plan for what to do in those situations. If people rejected you and thought you were stupid, well, you would get new friends, or you would have conversations with the people who are close to you on why you need their support anyway. It's not the end of the world. If you're afraid that you're going to run out of money, like what is your backup plan for that? Can you go get a job for a little while? Can you take out a loan? Can you do something that would allow you to like continue to survive? And then finally, with the highest self, our highest self knows that money isn't real, knows that life is an illusion. And the highest self is basically saying, well, why do I even need money? Because all of my basic needs are taken care of, or like I'm surviving. So what does it matter? Money isn't real anyway. And the way we get our highest self on board is by deepening into our soul's mission. Why do we feel called to what it is that we do? Why do we feel so deeply in tune? We have to get so deeply in tune with that our highest self realizes, oh, so you're saying that if I had more money, not only can I connect with people even more, I can also take that money and create the change that I want to see in the world as well, right? And that's when the highest self goes, oh, yeah, let's get some money. I want to do this too. And then we talked yesterday about what it means to jump timelines. Ooh, we got a comment. Caroline says, I'm still absorbing yesterday as it blew my mind. I am last night and today working on more fine tuning of my highest vision and future self version. In business, I'm currently working on learning the marketing piece to have the launch. Amazing. I love that. I love that it blew your mind so much. Yeah. And so to recap what we talked about yesterday, we were talking about quantum leaping timelines, and we were discussing about how our everything is connected to like the God source, whether you want to think of it as the universe, as God, as like the Force in Star Wars, whatever your concept is. It's the idea that this force both created us and we feed into it. And it's the thing that created us. So when we've heard the phrase like created in God's likeness, it's not that our bodies we're created in God's likeness, because that would be that would be God created in man's likeness. It's our consciousness, our minds, our hearts, our souls. That consciousness, that awareness, that is what has been created in God's likeness. And that consciousness exists both because it created our consciousness, and all of our consciousness feeds into that consciousness. So God is within us all. That's like what we've learned from all religions, is that idea that like that holiness is in us and we feed into it as well, right? And so what that allows us to do is that if we want to change our external surroundings, we have to bring ourselves as close to that result as possible, which means that we need to shift from looking at what do I need to do to like get X number of clients, and we instead need to shift how we show up in the world. So instead, we need to look at how to embody it. We ask ourselves, not how do I find this client? How do I make X amount of money? It becomes, what do I need to do today? Or like, what would I do today if I were the kind of person who makes $10,000 in a single week? Like if I were that person, what would I do today? And it's that living in that kind of dynamic that empowers you and encourages the universe to start reshaping reality around you, right? And so no worries if you didn't catch the ins and outs of it. We get so into it. I even talk about like the CIA documents they released on manifestation. It's wild, so good. But you can still follow along with us today and go back and check that out once we're done. Today we're discussing money magic. It's the final step in up leveling, because you need the first 2 days and all the energy we created from then, all that swagger, to bring now into the force behind your spells. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have been waiting for this because it's a really fun and kooky kind of topic. And because so much of what we've done the past couple of days is internal, and we're still going to talk a lot about the internal, but now we're going to we're going to look at how do we now propel it outside of ourselves. So we've gotten all 3 aspects of our psyche on board. We've started living in alignment with what we're calling in. Now we have that swagger and that confidence that we need to see the results of any kind of magic we may do. And I love talking about this. I love talking about manifestation, because the same principles that it takes to make anything work, whether that's manifestation or spells or business strategy, it's the same thing. It's all the same. And if you've been doing magic for a while, there's always something new to learn, a different way of looking at it, or a new philosophy to hear. And that's really actually what the crux of magical practice is. It is a practice. It's something you learn to do, and you build in your own technique based on your understanding. So there's literally no way to learn everything there is to know about magic, even just money magic. And I sure as hell don't know anything. It's about continuous learning and taking on the perspective of forget what you think you know and be open to revisiting the basics, because we always need to touch back with those things. So how did I discover this process? Who even am I? My name's Jessie Da Silva. I'm a psychic business consultant and a money mindset coach. I'm known as the Millennial Money Witch, which was a name given to me by Forbes based on my unique coaching formula that's based on the 3 principles of magic, which I've been essentially covering this week. And those 3 principles are: align your intentions, embody them deeply, and take inspired action daily. And these are the principles that I used to change my whole life. I was living in a lot of anxiety in a city that no longer served me. And now I live in like a beautiful, fairly rural area. I've got a bunch of nature right outside my window, which I opened, and I can hear the birds chirping, and I've got a beautiful breeze coming through the window. And it's just, that's exactly what I was craving. This allowed me to strip down to exactly what I needed or wanted out of life. I also went from being in a place where my rent checks are bouncing, bumping heads with my significant other over money, to having like $14,000 cash launches, making $11,000 in a single day. I've also gone from being somebody who was really hung up on her body image and, had a lot of like issues of binge eating and orthorexia, to now being somebody where I've now gained probably about like 60 pounds since giving all of that up. And I'm creating this much more beautiful relationship with food and exercise that's basically around my love for myself and not punishing myself to be a version of myself that other people want. And along the way, I've had like, that $11,000 cash day. I've had free professional photo shoots. I've had articles in Yahoo Finance and Forbes, countless podcast appearances. I also have gotten like free upgrades on luxury travel. So I've been like, I've had a free stay in a presidential suite at a luxury resort. I've had like free upgrades to first class and business class, which I would have never expected. But you'll see what I'm talking about once we get into this. The principles of magic are really just about how to hack your brain and live and like match this level of worthiness that you're calling into your life. So it's similar to how if you want high ticket clients, you need to embody somebody who feels deserving of that level of payment. And one of the things that you can do to feel deserving of that level of payment is to invest in high ticket coaching yourself, because it becomes a lot more believable to you that an average person like you would invest that level of money in you because you've done it. Right? Like the most empowering thing I ever did was pay my first coach. And even though I put it all on a credit card, it immediately showed me somebody would be willing to spend $6,000 on me because I just spent $6,000 on myself. What it does is it really opens your mind and your energy to a whole new world where you wholeheartedly believe that you can also charge high ticket. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, like, let me know. But the congruence of your actions opens your ability to confidently sell at that higher price. And thankfully, if you're looking for a place to step into that embodiment and take some of that inspired action, I've created a perfect stepping stone for the people who aren't totally at that level of investing one-on-one with a high ticket coach. So I've talked about it the past couple of days, but Practical Magic is my 12-week program to go deeper into these magical principles and how to apply them, not only so you can totally up-level your business, you can up-level your entire fucking life, because your business was never meant to thrive in a vacuum. So I'll save the details for later, and we're going to get into the lesson today. All right. So we've got a small group today, but that just means that we're going to get lots of questions answered. So the first thing I want to talk about is like the idea of what magic is and what it isn't. Because there's this idea that like alchemy, like that kind of work is really about, about turning things into gold, right? Like I'm going to take X steps, I'm going to do these actions, and I'm going to get this kind of result. So what you actually, and it's almost like a King Midas kind of perspective on what alchemy is. And in actuality, what alchemy is all about, what magic is all about, is the evolution of the soul. So it's about transformation in yourself and the physical transformation around you that results based on the transformation you're doing within your soul. So it's actually really interesting because, like, for example, in my favorite tarot deck here, I don't have a magician card. It's actually the alchemist. And I love that because the alchemist, or rather the magician, anytime you see them, I'm trying to find it. I should have pulled it out before we got started, but that's okay. What you see in like the traditional tarot deck is, here we go. So it's the alchemist. So, and what you always see in tarot decks is the magician. Let me see if I can find a good representation in this other tarot deck. Dali is this is my Dali deck, and he's represented by Dali, which is really funny. But in the traditional tarot deck, the magician is always shown pointing above, like pointing to the sky, and pointing down to the ground. And that's meant to represent this idea as above, so below, right? So it's this idea that what we do in our lives is really just a reflection of what the God force does for us as well. I realize I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm already halfway through this deck. So now I got to find the magician for you. That's the hermit. That's what I thought. And so what that does is it represents that idea of as above, so below. So the fact that that is what the magician is doing, that as above, so below kind of vibe, and the fact that in this other deck that I have that he's represented by the alchemist, really, he's not even pointing. I looked it up in this deck and he's not even pointing up or down. So never mind. But the fact that that's what he's represented by really kind of brings that meaningful circle. Magic, what magic actually does is it begins with philosophy. Like you have to understand like some kind of esoteric ideas on how the world works in order to really understand how to capitalize on your spells and how to make them work. Because if you just go into it with, with just the right materials, but you don't necessarily have the right thought process, or you're not really going in understanding how magic works, then what happens is that like you run the risk of your spell falling flat or backfiring. What I mean by backfiring is not like you're going to be cursed or anything. It just means that you may not get the result that you want. And that can look like manifesting what you're subconsciously or consciously afraid of. So if you're casting a spell for prosperity and you're carrying a lot of worry or a lot of fear, a lot of scarcity mindset in your heart, you can wind up making a situation slightly worse because that's what you're actually focusing on. That's what your intentions are that you're holding. So to understand the how of magic, we're gonna review a set of ideas about how the world works called the 7 Hermetic Principles. And we're going to go by them one by one. It's not going to take a ton of time, but you really need to understand these in order to understand how magic works. So that way you can understand like how to bring that energy like to spell work. So the first one is the principle of mentalism. So this is the idea that everything we see and everything we are was created by thought. Like our god or goddess or god force, if you will, that we were created merely by that thought, that the Big Bang, like the impetus of that was literally just this god force's thought, and it caused all of that. And so our thoughts, like if our thoughts are fed by the god force and we feed into the god force, then that means that because we are also created in God's image with a mind and awareness and consciousness, it seeks to follow that we can also change reality with our mind, right? Because we are created in God's image. There's no difference between God and us. So that brings us to the next, so number 2, which is the principle of correspondence. So if you've heard that phrase, as within, so without, or as above, so below, you already know what this principle is about. It's saying that in order for external wisdom to give you what you're looking for, you must first find it within. And that's why we spent the last couple of days talking about how to change our minds and everyday activities that we can do to change the external, because what that does is it allows us, when things click for us on the inside, we see the change on the outside. Like if you've ever been in a place where you didn't understand what somebody told you, you didn't understand a certain lesson, or say you've given advice to somebody who wasn't ready to hear it, and it took days, weeks, years for you to have this moment of being like, oh, that's what that was about. That person was right. I was right. Or somebody tells you years later, you were right about that guy. I should have broken up with him. And, like you were right all along. That kind of vibe, like that's the as within, so without. Like you can only come to the truth when you are open and ready to receive it. But I mean, this also speaks to the external, like, candle colors, magic, herbs, like herbs, flowers, crystals, things that can basically lend power to our spell work as well. But it has to come from within first. If it's not within, then the external tools are not going to have the same effect. So number 3 is the principle of vibration. Sound familiar? So it's the idea that everything is in motion, not just atoms that are constantly vibrating inside us. It's just that it's like literally things are always moving. And so this incorporates both the law of attraction and the law of change. So you've heard of the law of attraction, and really at its most basic, the law of attraction says like attracts like, right? So however you are or whatever you are, like things that are similar are always constantly moving toward each other. And the law of change is really just saying that change is like, it's literally that, like change is always happening. Things are always changing. And we need to not only embrace, but expect change as witches, as evolved humans, and as people who are using magic to actively request change through spell work. That's like what you're doing when you cast a spell. You're saying, I want change. So you can't then resist the change, right? So basically, like if you change your vibration, you can literally change what ripples out into the world, right? Like that's the basis of that. Then we have the principle of polarity. The principle of polarity says that everything has an opposite, and each opposite includes essences of the other. And you know this because you've seen like the yin yang sign, where it's like the circle with the white, black halves, and each one has a dot of the opposite color in there. What it's saying is that that literally, like if you think of like wealth and poverty, keep it in terms of money. There are plenty of people who are like financially wealthy and they're poor in other aspects, or they're still experiencing want or need. Just like in scarcity, you're just as capable of feeling grateful. You're capable of feeling grateful in abundance. Like if you have a really rich community, a really rich life, even if you may not have a ton of money, there are plenty of people who can still experience gratitude, right? There are always of elements of one opposite and the other. So the way this plays out in magic is this idea of giving and receiving. So if you're able to give happily, then you'll receive happily as well. And this is why I always tell people that when you pay your bills, you should feel really happy and grateful. And, when it comes to your debt, like be grateful for it. Don't resent it, because when you pay back that stuff, then what you're saying is like, I'm so grateful I have the money to receive this. And I know I can pay this easily because it's coming back to me. That's what that's all about. And then we have the principle of rhythm. So the principle of rhythm basically just says everything flows in a cycle. So Lion King, the circle of life, this idea that this too shall pass. All of these things, the Wheel of Fortune and the tarot, it's this idea that things live on a cycle, nothing is permanent. And it's not that everything is always changing, it's that there's a natural cycle to life, right? Like every year we have the same 4 seasons, and you pass through different seasons of your life as well. Like, there's always a pattern to it. And we see this in, different lessons as well, like how you treat others is the way you will be treated. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Basically, what you send out energetically, you receive energetically. This also speaks to moon cycles, days, months, seasons, all of that stuff. Number 6 is the principle of gender, and that is the law of polarity and action. So the law of polarity, like the yin yang sign, is just kind of static. It's just saying that these things exist separately and they contain elements of each other. And the principle of gender is basically saying that it's active. So this is where we have the concepts of like masculine and feminine energy. And I don't really like those outdated terms, but we're going to use them anyway, because what we mean when we say masculine or feminine energy is really like thinking of an outlet plugging into a wall, right? Like a plug plugging into an outlet in the wall. The outlet in the wall is what an electrician referred to as being like the female part, and the plug that has the prongs on it, they would refer to as a male part, not because it's like shaped like a penis, although I guess it is, it's where it comes from. But they're just saying that like one is reaching out and one is just receiving. So when we talk about that, I like to use the terms the divine creative, because creativity is received. That's how we receive downloads. It's how we receive guidance. It's how we are able to receive what we need, like wisdom, all of those things. And then like to refer to the other as the divine strategy. It's more about taking action and going out there. So that's what the principle of gender is. It's this idea that we need to live in balance of the two. And a lot of us, especially if you're a female entrepreneur, a lot of us tend to be really good at like the doing, the divine strategy, where we go out and make things happen. And it's harder for us to sit back and receive, to stay in this place of like, okay, I don't need to do anything. I just need to be open and capable of receiving what it is that I'm asking for. And it's only when those things are in balance can things start to click in a spell. So the principle, that brings us to the last principle, which is the principle of cause and effect, which means that there are no coincidences. Like everything has a cause and effect. So people may address that, like brush things off as a coincidence. And instead in magic, we say like, well, there could be many planes of causation, but nothing escapes that law of cause and effect. So that just means that what you're perceiving as a coincidence, it has so many different, it can have multiple sources of causes, and one is going to be like more correct, like more impactful than the others. So if it seems like a result of your spell, we're going to go ahead and accept that that's what it is. It's not a coincidence. It is the spell. It is what you put into practice. So it's basically that idea that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which is one of Newton's laws of physics. So if you have, now that you understand these principles, and these are principles that, you're going to have to revisit multiple times, because we always want to return to the basics, because if there's ever something that doesn't seem like it's quite working, that's where we need to go. Where are we skimping on the basis? Where have we rushed things? It's always better to have a spell that takes a little bit longer to generate and causes less drama than like going in raw dogging it and like having some crazy result, right? And so we want to like be very intentional with how we go about casting our spells. If you're still with me, go ahead and let me know. Let me know if you have any questions, because now we're going to get into some more, like we're going to get into things a little faster. So in order to, the genesis, I'll say the genesis of a spell is what's called a thought form. And it's literally just that. It's just ideas or thoughts that that are the basis of the spell. So the most common way to conjure these thought forms really is using the law of attraction. Okay. And people use that term so loosey-goosey. They try to use it as like interchangeable with manifestation and everything else, but it's actually a specific spiritual law. It's one of the 9 one of the 9 universal laws or something. So there are 4 aspects to the law of attraction, and all of these contribute to having a really juicy thought form that can be the basis of a spell. And so they are appreciation and thankfulness, validation and enthusiasm from the beginning, banishing doubt and removing the fear of failure, and celebrating and acknowledging the outcome. So that's how we want to approach our spells. So we want to go in having a feeling of appreciation and thankfulness, because if we go in super focused on want, need, lack, then that's going to be actually the genesis of it. The same thing with our emotions. If we go in emotions of grief or sadness, and this isn't me saying that you can't use those emotions for the genesis of a spell, you can, but they're going to be for different types of spells. Today, we're talking about money and prosperity. So for money and prosperity spells, it's imperative that you get into a place of optimism, of happiness, of celebration, because that attracts money and prosperity, luck, fame, whatever it is that you're casting a money spell for. That's what attracts it. If you can use grief, sadness, despair in other kinds of spells, but not in money spells. So you want to look at how can you get your get yourself into a space of appreciation and thankfulness for where you are right now. And no matter what situation you're in, finding that gratitude. Then it becomes validation and enthusiasm. So then really looking at having enthusiasm from the beginning that your spell can and will work. And it just needs to be like excitement, really. And here's the thing is that it doesn't actually have to be attached to the outcome. It can just be an excitement for the moment. So you can drum up excitement by dancing, singing, being silly, like, doing yoga, whatever. You can conjure up enthusiasm. It doesn't necessarily need to be natural, right? And then when it comes to banishing doubt and removing the fear of failure, that's so to allow you to take action. Because if you are afraid of failing, then you won't ever take the action. So that's why it needs to be not removing failure, removing the fear of it. Because even if you do fail, you need to be willing, remember, you need to be willing not only to embrace the change, but you need to look at it as embracing the lesson from that change. And then finally, celebrating, acknowledging the outcome. That's really just about like celebrating yourself as a powerful witch, as having the power to change the external. So there are no coincidences. If you see things, if things feel manifested, if things feel divine, you need to run with that and celebrate it. That's what builds the trust muscle. And that makes you better at manifesting, at casting spells. All of that works that way. So what are the basic elements of spell work? First, you need purpose and focus. So you want to make sure that you are getting grounded, that you want to make sure that you're getting focused, that you're in a place of sincerity. You want to be in a calm, centered state. That is always how you want to start. So meditation before a spell is great, even just like closing your eyes, listening to music, doing visualization practices where you imagine, like I like to imagine roots growing out of my feet and into the earth. If you can get your bare feet onto the earth, that's amazing. You can do that too. So really getting really grounded and centered. Next, so step 2 would be intention and will. That's where you want to bring up the positive energy behind your intention. So if you're casting spells for money, if you're casting spells for luck or prosperity or client attraction, you really want to focus on the joy that comes from that. So you want to like literally inside your mind, inside your body, like almost like close your eyes and experience what it's like when you do see that $10,000 in your bank account. You want to experience, like, imagine, so say you've got, a program, let's say you have a program called Practical Magic and it's, like almost $4,000. If you're thinking about that, I'm going to imagine like the 3 people who want to enroll, who feel so good about it. I think about like, what are their businesses like? What are their personalities like? And how grateful they feel to have found it. What are they going to like? Like, what are they like when they're looking at the sales page? How do they feel when they're talking to me? Like, you really want to make that as specific as possible and feel so juicy and good about it. Imagine hit that $10,000 or $12,000 or $20,000, $50,000. If it's in your account, how do you feel when you check your account? How do you feel when you pay your bills? How do you feel when you like buy groceries? And how grateful, like you really want to make that visualization as powerful and realistic as possible. The next part is raising your personal vibration. What that means is like you literally just want to get your emotions in the right state, because whatever you're emotionally experiencing is going to get put into the outcome of the spell. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is that you're feeling high vibe, right? Like high vibe. All that means is like get up, like I will dance. I will sometimes drum, do like a drum pattern on my chest or on my lap or on my desk, and like just have fun. Like sometimes I like make up songs. You don't want to dance to other people's music or other people's songs, because that's a whole like consensual area when it comes to magic. So get your own, like, twerk, flip your hair, do a cartwheel. Like you want to bring up energy in your body and put yourself in a place to feel really good. If you feel silly, that's great. Silliness, happiness, Like that's what you want to be doing. You also need a sacred space for your spell work. So I actually have my altars like in this on this little part of my desk behind me, and like nothing touches this except stuff for spells. That's what it's about. And the reason we have that is because we want to create a mental link between our brains and like what it's time for. So just like you can condition your brain to be like, oh, I wake up and I work out, or I wake up and I make breakfast, or I wake up and I have coffee. Just like you can condition your mind to associate like a routine with that, we want to do it with a sacred space. We want to make sure it's like a nice, clean, it's pretty, it's a space we like to be in. And so we just dedicate that space to this kind of work. You also need supplies. That's where we're going to look at like candles, different color candles, herbs, crystals, props, etc. And then finally timing. So that's when we talk about moon phases, days of the week, times of the day, astrology. All of those things feed into a spell. Now, like I'm a big fan of what I call Cheeto dust witchcraft, which means that I don't do everything perfectly, but these things will power it up, power a spell up. At the very least, you want to make sure the moon phase is going to be like that you're in the right moon phase. That's like the bare minimum there. Other than that, like the other things are just going to zhuzh it up. So that being said, I can tell you like some of the basics. Obviously, like a green candle is going to correspond to money. You can use a white candle for literally anything. Like, so if you don't have a green candle, you can use a white one, okay? But green is generally going to be the color that you use for a money spell. Gold is also really good. You can find like specifically candles for spell work. They look like this. Let me grab them. Got a few different ones here. So you can use, they look like this. They're like little tapered candles. You can get them online. They don't smell like anything. They just smell like wax. And they're good for like each color represents something different. Black is usually like negative energy, like getting rid of, like banishing kind of energy. White is like the default. Green is for money. Gold can also be for money or abundance. Red, people can use red as well. Red is generally used, you can use it for like sexual energy. It's also good for like heart connection stuff, like bringing things from the heart. Pink is generally used for love. Blue is like, I don't know if I've ever actually used a blue candle. Let me see what. I know that you can use it for work with Jupiter because Jupiter's color is blue. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you guys on that. So those are like the colors that you want to keep in mind. And you can charge your, wait, did I earmark it maybe? No. Just check, just in case. That's the timing. All right, well, anyway. Actually, no. My ADHD is seizing on this. Candle colors, there we go, 59. And if you're curious what book this is, Practical Prosperity Magic. This is like, it's like a book I consult for things like that. Like exactly that. I was like, oh, what's the blue for? Oh yeah, look at that. Royal blue is associated with the planet Jupiter, as are the colors of purple and green. Jupiter is linked to prosperity, which means that royal blue and purple would both also be harmonious to your prosperity spells. Okay, I was right. So blue is associated with Jupiter, who's associated with luck, good fortune, that kind of thing. I would say Jupiter is like a sugar daddy, like like a sugar daddy, and also he's just like a granddaddy sugar daddy. That's what Jupiter's really all about. So when it comes to the timing, the most basic thing, since you can always use a white candle for things, the basic thing is that you want to make sure that you're using the right timing. So the basic thing with that is that we've got a full moon, a new moon, waxing and waning moons, right? Those are the major ones. So we know what a full moon is. Full moons, the best kind of spells, like you can cast any kind of spell at the full moon. It's kind of like a catch-all. But I like to say, because the moon is about to shrink, you want to think that like shrinking moons, so like a waning moon, is for release. So it's a really good time for like banishing poverty, banishing scarcity mindset, getting rid of bad habits. That's what you want to think of there. And so I say with the full moon, you're going to have the best result from a spell that incorporates some kind of release. So you can cast a spell to attract things, but you also want to make sure that it first starts with some kind of release. And that can even just be like writing on a piece of paper things that you're releasing and burning it in the candle flame. But like it needs to incorporate some kind of aspect of that. Otherwise, like it's not going to have as great of a power. So that's waning moon. So as the moon goes from a full moon, it starts shrinking to like, become a new moon, which is dark. Those are going to be best for like spells of like diminishment. So getting rid of things. And it's also a really great time in your life to like declutter, to clean up, to donate things, like get shit out of your house. It's a good time for that as well. When it comes to the waxing moon, so where the moon is getting larger, and the new moon, so especially the new moon where it's totally black, it's now going to start getting bigger. And so that's when you want to cast spells for attraction or for like more stuff, right? So that's when you want to cast those kind of spells. As for that, like, and then you can also look at astrology. So basically like the theme of that moon, of whatever the moon phase is in, is going to be based on where the moon is. So we just had a Pisces full moon on Monday. And so Pisces is all of that like witchy 12th house energy, meaning like intuition and growth and understanding other people and like, kind of like these esoteric principles. So it's like anything that's going to serve you during that time is going to be connecting to your intuition, connecting to creativity, releasing old habits, things that aren't serving you anymore. Yay, Caroline says this is great. I'm so glad. So you want to pay attention to like what the moon phase is, because it usually gives you a pretty good theme for what your spell can be. And then as far as days of the week, when it comes to money spells, you really only need to know 2, Thursday and Sunday. So Sunday is the day of the sun, prosperity, that's like gold is the color associated with it. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Jupiter being the god of money and good fortune, sugar daddy Jupiter, as I like to call him. That's on Thursday. So those are going to be your best days for it. There are even like hours of the day that are better to cast spells, but I don't get into that as much unless I'm working with like the sun specifically, because the sun, guess what's important to the sun? Sunrise, noon, sunset. That's it. So when it comes to like herbs and materials like that, herbs are really like, it's going to be things that attract money. Basil. So a good little trick is throwing basil leaves in a bath. That's something that can like attract money to you. It gives you that like money attraction vibe. What else? Mint, I believe mint and rosemary. Mint and rosemary. Rosemary is kind of like salt. It goes with everything, really. Yes, so we've got, oh, look at this. Wait, what's this? No, never mind. I was looking at something else. Oh, this live has taken a lot out of me. I am tired. So anyway, yeah. You can do, oh, here we go. Herbal correspondences. Oh, yeah. Allspice is really good. Cinnamon is really good. So it's actually, this is a perfect time of year. Like, you can make anything into a spell, right? I don't like to think of like, oh, your thoughts can change, like your thoughts will change anything. So be careful what you think. It's not about that because you have to have intentional thoughts, right? It has to be about the intention of the words that you speak. Anything can be a spell, but only if there's intention behind those words. Because otherwise, like every time I said fuck me, I am grossly disappointed by how little I'm getting fucked based on how often I say that. So you want to make sure that like if you say you're going to make like, you're going to add some pumpkin spices to your coffee in the morning. This is a great example. Cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, all of these warm fall spices that we love at this time of year, they're all prosperity herbs. So if you were going to mix it like into your coffee grounds or something, do it with intention. As you pour those spices and mix them, you want to sit there and think like, this coffee is going to give me the power and the magnetism that I need to reach my goals today. When you do something like that with intention, you've just made a spell. You just did magic. That's what that's for. Okay. So yeah, cloves are also really good for magic. Yes. Ooh, figs. I didn't realize that. Fig. Mmm. Orange is good because it's related to the sun. Sunflowers, tulips. Those sunflowers are really good. Obviously, those are associated to the sun. They look like the sun, right? Maple is great. That's for Jupiter. Honeysuckle's related to Jupiter. We got lots of good stuff, right? Cedar, chicory, yeah, all related to the sun or to the sun. So all of that's super great for you to use. And you can do that by just like, I mean, you can add it to a bath. You can roll a candle, put a candle in some oil, like put oil all around a candle, roll the candle in those herbs. I've done that before. And then crystals as well. So, I mean, obviously there's so many crystals, but some classic ones, pyrite, fool's gold is always going to be good for prosperity money spells. Because it looks like gold. Citrine is normally this like, it can be like a bright yellow or a bright green. And this is really good for money spells as well. It has really playful energy. So actually good for anything where you need like happiness or childlike energy. It can be lime green sometimes. It's pretty crazy. We've got aventurine, which is like this light green color. It's like almost like a mint color. Aventurine's really good. I have a ring with this. That's good for money spells. So anything with money spells. Trying to look at what else I have around. That's good. Oh, you know what? I have my crystal bag here. So I don't keep them all out all the time. I use them for different things. I know this one is good for money, but I don't remember what it is, to be honest with you. Oh, I have the smoky quartz. I didn't realize. Is that smoky quartz or amethyst? No, that's smoky quartz, I think. Anyway, there are plenty of crystals you can use for these things. Clear quartz, which I think I just put back in there. Oh, this is my amethyst. Clear quartz is really good for clarity. So if you need clarity in something, and you can pair different crystals with what you're doing as well. So the best way to pick a crystal for things is honestly to just pick something that you're drawn to, really. Tiger's eye is also good, which my tiger's eye is in my bedroom, so I don't have it on me. But anyway, those are good. And then there are these little shells. These little shells in some practices are good for like money because I guess they were used as currency in the past. And then that's a good point too, which is that actual currency is really good for money spells as well. It's like literally using dollars, using coins, and they don't even have to be your own currency. So as long as you have them, you can use them in spell work as well. Like if you were to create a money jar, which I've done, that's like, oh, bay leaves, also good. So when you do that, it's like you can put all the coins in a jar. This was an old jar of ghee. And the thing is that you can reuse these things. So with the herbs that you've used, those you just kind of want to dispose of. You can either, you can chuck them, you can throw them in the, like flush them down the toilet if you burned anything. But they're also natural, so you can return them to nature. Just put them outside, scatter them outside for the birds. And then, so you can do that with your stuff. What else? What else can you do? Yeah. I mean, like there's so much you can do. And that's why I include spells in practical magic, because they're really fun. And it's a really great way when you're working with multiple people to kind of get a feel for what it's like. So yeah, that's my spiel on magic. There's so much more I could get into. I mean, this is really just the tip of the iceberg, because remember, there's so many things that you can do with all of this. So anyway, I will say that, yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to discuss, like how to write your own spells, why rhyming is important, music magic, how to like meditate to get your personal energy up, the chakras, like, because you can use all your chakras. You got to turn your chakras on to make things work. So there's so many things that I go into, that I talk to with people. Deity work, using different deities. I've talked about Jupiter, and the sun, but there are also plenty of others, like Ganesha is a deity that I love to work with, Lakshmi, Freya, Fortuna. There are all these deities that you can work with. And so I talk about all of these on how I cover all of this, like in practical magic. I mean, I could literally, like, you could do a whole course just on spell work. So that's why I have practical magic, is to like give you the introduction to these things, teach you how to do a few spells, and that way you feel more comfortable doing it. Plus, you get like that group effort. So when you have a bunch of people doing a spell together, even if they're not in the same room, but if they're all over the place, like you still get that same extra energy from it. So I'm teaching more of these principles of magic like this, so you can really understand how to create your own manifestation practice and like learn to live in abundance before you see it in the physical realm. So that's what practical magic is. It's 12 weeks, and it's for those who are like done with the small growth. So not only do we discuss magic, we also talk about hard business strategy. I didn't really talk about that today, but if you were to take those Hermetic principles we discussed today, the same breakdown for the law of attraction and the actions that you need to take for your business, if you were to apply that to like your like growing a Facebook group, growing a following on Instagram, like starting a TikTok, like it's going to work for those things as well. That's the beauty of practical magic, is that it's both practical and magical, because that's how I am. That's what I teach. Like I teach you both, because you need both really in order to succeed, because remember, it's all about that balance. So this is something I could easily offer like in the range of like 10K or more for these 12 weeks, but I'm actually offering it as a special rate of $3,888. That price is increasing to $4,444 on October 1st. So get in there before you can. And if you stayed for this whole thing, I appreciate it so deeply. The Practical Magic also has 6 guest experts. 3 of them are woo-woo, 3 of them are business. But it's funny because I always say all of my business experts are psychics. All of my psychics are business experts. So it's just going to be so fun. And it's for anybody. I've had a whole type, like all different kinds of people in this program before. I've had a food artist and a chef educator. I've had a home care, like someone who owns a home care business. I've had consultants, lawyers, VAs, OBMs, like you name it. I've had people in there. So anyway, I won't go on about it anymore. I'm already been talking for about an hour, but thank you so much again for your time. Don't forget to check out the details on Practical Magic. I pinned the link here. I'm just excited. It's a 12-week program for reshaping reality, changing your business, and up-leveling your entire fucking life. So I'll see you guys on Monday because I'll be interviewing one of my current clients on the work that we do together, and you can get more of a glimpse into all of that. Oh, Caroline says, thanks for your inspiration. Anytime, Caroline. Have a good one, my friends. And please, I hope the weather is just as lovely by you. Enjoy your pumpkin spice, and I'll see you soon. Bye.